Hello, this is Mrs. Rodolfi, and I'm going to go through task number 2 for the Unit 5 quadratic equation project. So for this one, you need to choose another of the listed functions for this section. So remember, for each task, you're choosing a different quadratic equation from the bank, so you do have to sign up for it on the bank. You're going to solve using the 4 methods shown below. You do need to show all steps and box or highlight your answers. So the 4 methods that you're going to use are factoring, completing the square, using the quadratic formula, and graphing on Desmos. So I'll be going through the first 3 listed on this packet, and then you'll graph the solutions on the graph, which I did show how to do in the task number 1 video. So you can reference that for showing your solutions. All right, so my equation is the one that we have on our example slides. So it is g of x equals x squared plus 8x minus 65. And factoring, so highly recommend referencing your notes. So we have some examples in here. So you want to make sure that it's equal to 0. And then we want to label our A, B, and C, do the X puzzle, and then use our factors to put it in factored form and solve for the solution. So let me rewrite it here. X squared plus 8x minus 65 equals 0. So if you're just given your equation, that's what y equals. So we're trying to find when y equals 0. So you would just put it equal to 0. And then a is 1, because remember, if it's x squared, there's that invisible 1 in front of it. B equals 8. That's the coefficient of x. And c equals negative 65. So my equation has an a value of 1. So remember, steps are a little different if your a value is greater than 1. So you can reference the additional videos in the video resources if you need more help with an a is greater than 1. All right, so the top of the x, remember, is our a times c. So 1 times negative 65 is negative 65. And then our b value goes in the bottom, which is 8. So our factors need to multiply to negative 65 and add to 8. So again, that's where you can reference this factor pair signs flowchart. So I know my a times c is negative, and then my b value is positive, so the bigger factor is positive. So smaller one's negative, bigger one's positive. So I need to find factors of negative 65. Remember, if you're struggling, you can just start dividing. So like starting with 1. Negative 65 divided by 1 is negative 65. And then the factors would be the 1 that we divided by, and then whatever you get for your answer, negative 65. But remember, we want the bigger number to be positive. So we would have negative 1 and 65. So I would like keep track of your factors here just so you know what you already used. Now I know if I add these together, I'm not going to get 8, so those are not going to work. Then you can just keep, you don't even have to use negative, just to divide by 2. We don't want a decimal. Then we would divide by 3. Nope. I know 4 wouldn't go into it, so 5. Okay, 5 and 13. So smaller number is negative, bigger number positive. Negative 5 plus 13, and that gives positive 8. So I know that these are my factors, negative 5 and 13. All right, so then once we have our 2 factors and a is equal to 1, so remember, this is just when a is equal to 1. There's more steps to it if a is greater than 1. So then I can put my factors in factored form. So if it's negative 5, I would put x minus 5, and then positive 13, x plus 13. And then remember, these are both equal to 0. Then we would set each factored form equal to 0 and solve for x. So if it's minus 5, the inverse is plus 5, x equals 5, box your answer or highlight. And then inverse of adding 13 is subtracting 13, x equals negative 13. And then remember to use Desmos. Remember, if you type in your original equation in Desmos, these are the x-intercepts. So you should see a point at 5, 0 and a point at negative 13, 0. So always check using Desmos to make sure your answers are correlating with those x-intercepts. All right, then we need to show completing the square method for this same equation. So again, use the steps that we did a packet on this, so it's a little easier to read on the packet, but the steps are written on the outside of this foldable. So step 1, write the equation in the form x squared plus bx equals c. So we want to put it equal to c. So right now it's x squared plus 8x minus 65 equals 0. So I want my c value is negative 65, so I need to add 65 to both sides. X squared plus 8x equals 65. All right, now it's equal to c. Step 2, find b divided by 2 squared. So b divided by 2 squared. So my b value is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4, and 4 squared is 16. Step 3, complete the square by adding b divided by 2 squared to both sides of the equation. All right, so my 16 is what I need to add to both sides of my equation. So I'm going to highlight that. So I have x squared plus 8x plus 16. So I'm adding it to that left side up here. Then on the right side I had 65, and I also need to add it, the plus 16 on that side. All right, now we can move on to step 4, factor the perfect square trinomial. So remember, to factor it, I need to find factors of 16 that add up to 8. Remember, if it's a perfect square, it's going to be the same number. So I know 4 times 4 is 16. 4 plus 4 is 8. So 8x plus 4 squared. And then remember, it's always going to be this number when we did b divided by 2. So before we squared it to get 16, that's going to be the number we use in our factored form. Then you want to combine your like terms here. 65 plus 16 is 81. All right, now we go on to step 5, take the square root of both sides. Square root of x plus 4 squared cancels out that squared part of it, so we're just left with x plus 4. Square root of 81 is plus or minus 9. So then, last step over here, write two equations using both the positive and negative square root, and then solve each equation. So we would do x plus 4 equals 9, and x plus 4 equals negative 9. So remember, this x plus 4 part, don't change that sign. That stays plus 4. The only thing that changes is what it's equal to, 9 and negative 9. Do the inverse, minus 4, x equals 5. And then minus 4, negative 9 minus 4 is negative 13. And remember, all these should get the same answers. These are all finding the x-intercepts. So it should match the same x-intercepts you got from factoring as well as on your Desmos graph. All right, and then one more quadratic formula. So you're using this formula given at the bottom of the foldable here. So negative b plus or minus b squared plus or minus the square root of b squared. Let me write it down. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. All right, and then let me rewrite my function x squared plus 8x minus 65. Oh, you guys can't see that. Sorry about that. All right, so here's the formula using, same equation again. All right, so we know that A is 1, B is 8, and C is negative 65. So now I'm just going to plug them into the formula. So remember, if it's negative B, we want to put that negative on the outside the parentheses and then substitute your B value inside the parentheses. B squared, always minus 4, and then times our A, which is minus 1, times C minus negative 65, over 2 times A, which is 1. And then break it down. So negative, remember if it's negative, there's that invisible negative 1. So negative 1 times 8 is negative 8. 8 squared is 64. Remember, if you have a negative B value in there, you have to use parentheses when you type it into your calculator. All right, then I would just multiply all three of these together. Remember, if it's minus 4, that's negative 4. Times 1 times negative 65, and that gives me positive 260. So I'm going to put plus 260. Denominator has 2 times 1, which is 2. All right, then add what's under your radical. X equals negative 8 plus or minus, and then 64 plus 260 is 324 over 2. All right, and then square root of 324 is 8 plus or minus 18, so that's why we have that plus or minus in front of us. So negative 8 plus or minus 18 over 2. Then again, we want to create our two separate equations, one adding it, so negative 8 plus 18 over 2 and negative 8 minus 18 over 2. And then solve. So do the numerator first, negative 8 plus 18. Find what that equals first, then divide it by the denominator. So divided by 2 is 5. Again, you should be getting the same answers as those other methods. All right, then negative 8 minus 18, enter, and then divided by 2, and I get negative 13, which I've been getting so far. So again, same answers as our previous methods, minus x equals 5 and x equals negative 13. Then you're going to graph them on Desmos. Remember to label the ordered pairs and label that they are the solutions or the roots to the equation. The bonus, I will go over this bonus too. So the bonus is use the discriminant to show the number of solutions and then provide a statement explaining why your answer proves that number. All right, so discriminant is just the part under the radical, the b squared minus 4ac. So my b value was 8 and then squared minus 4. So it's pretty much whatever you have under your radical here. Times 1 times negative 65. So I really can just go back up here and see what I did, okay? 8 squared was 64, and then negative 4 times 1 times negative 65 is positive 260, and 64 plus 260 was the 324. So my answer is positive, which tells me about the number of solutions. But I am not going to say any more about that because since this is a bonus part of the project, you need to go back to your notes and reference why having that positive discriminant, how is that relevant to the number of solutions and what does that mean in general. All right, that's it for today. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.